Can you dip turn a creek boat? Apparently so. And this is a pretty small seam. If it can be done here, it can definitely be done in places where there is a stronger current and a more defined seam. And if that's the case, man, that's a useful tool to have. Being able to do a really snappy turn like that on an eddy line, that's gonna pay dividends in your nimbleness on the creek. Am I suggesting you should do it all the time? No. But, is it useful? Heck yeah.
So just how do you go about doing a dip turn in a creek boat? Well, the most important thing to note here is that from a technical standpoint, there's very little difference between dipping the stern of a creek boat and dipping a half slice or a playboat. So if you want to do a deep dive into the world of verticality, you can click on the tutorial in the top right of the screen right now. But the big obvious difference with creek boats is volume. More volume in the stern means more resistance to overcome when you're slicing it underwater. There are two consequences here. First, you should not expect to get fully vertical, or even close to vertical, in your creek boat. Certainly in the right, or perhaps wrong, depending on your point of view, spot on the river, I have no doubt it can be done. But it's unlikely to be our regular aim. While we're thinking about it though, let me know in the comments, what's the weirdest position you've ever seen a creek boat end up in, deliberate or otherwise? Second, and more importantly, all this stern volume means more effort is required to achieve a dip turn than with a slicier boat. Note, however, that this doesn't mean more effort from the paddler necessarily. We should be looking for the river to provide that effort. That means we need to find a clearly defined seam or eddy line with a bit of power to it. A weak eddy line won't cut it, but while a powerful seam will certainly help, as you can see from my example here at Wood Mill, there's no need to go hunting for the world's gnarliest eddy line to practice this. Just something where the converging currents provide a bit of downward force and some clear surface markers. Mine creates this lovely sharp diagonal line that is a perfect visual marker, for instance. Your approach speed will have a big impact on how the move is performed. It can be approached slowly, with the result that you'll perform your dip turn more in the seam, or fast, with the result that your momentum will naturally carry you farther into the eddy before you initiate. This is just one of those judgment skills that takes time, trial and error to develop. The more you do it, the better you will learn to adjust on the fly according to how fast you're approaching the seam. As you can see here, for example, I can tell I'm crossing the eddy line quite fast, so I pause for just a split second, allowing the boat to decelerate before initiating. It's a dance, not a wrestling match. One thing to be aware of with those faster approaches is that they will put you deeper into the eddy, meaning less aerated water and thus more resistance to overcome. I'd recommend starting slow and working up. Though eddy lines will vary, and there are different techniques that will produce similar results, for today we're going to focus on a classic stern rudder to bow rudder initiation. For this, you want to cross the eddy line roughly perpendicular, keeping the hull relatively flat. Certainly you don't want to dip that downstream edge too soon. If anything, a touch of upstream edge, as you would normally apply when entering an eddy, can help to keep things flowing smoothly. Just as, or slightly after your hips cross the eddy line, you want to be planting your upstream blade in a rudder behind you, probably about on the seam line itself, and beginning to drop that downstream edge into the water. The crucial thing at this point is to lead with your eyes. Look in the desired direction of travel, i.e. towards your leading blade. This will naturally turn your whole torso towards that side in a neutral, upright position. Do not be tempted to lean back. All that will do is kick your feet out in front of you and keep the boat flat. Rather, from that neutral position, pull up on your knees and continue to scoop the stern under the water. Remember, you're in a creek boat here. Don't try to welly on a huge amount of edge, because you'll just be setting yourself up to fail, fighting against all that volume. A gentle, shallow arc is what we're aiming for. From here, focus on keeping that upstream blade anchored in the water. If you do, the paddle shaft will naturally become more vertical. Use that to transition from a stern rudder to more of a bow rudder. Imagine that you are pulling your knees towards that bow rudder, as if your body is the centre of a circle, and your knees and the bow rudder are points on the edge of the circle moving towards one another. As you do so, perform a gentle edge transition so that the boat's volume stops being a problem to be overcome and starts to work in your favour, bringing the stern back to the surface. To reiterate, this is not about trying to get vertical. The aim here is achieving some fluid turns. Thanks for tuning in. If you've enjoyed this and you're new here, I'd love to encourage you to subscribe, ding the notification bell and do all the other normal YouTube things. But really, what I want to encourage you to do is get out there in whatever boat you can and have a mess around with some new skills. And I'll see you in the next one.